Hello everyone, welcome. My name is Yael Osowski. I'm Deputy Director at the Consumer Choice Center, and I'm here to talk to you today about some of the work that we've been doing at our organization. If you guys don't know Consumer Choice Center, we're a consumer advocacy group. You might have heard from some of my colleagues. What we do is we try to represent consumers who like pro-innovation policies. That includes things like vaping, it includes things like CBD, things like smart cannabis policy. And we're really trying to represent consumers across all facets of policy. But we're looking at science, we're looking at lifestyle regulation, we're looking at health and science, and anything related to consumer choice. There's many other issues that we typically discuss or write about or try to get published on. But for today's presentation, I hope you guys are doing well. It's a nice day to be on the stream with you. We're going to talk about our vape index. We put this together in September, and the idea was that we wanted to be able to rank every state in the United States and figuring out which state had the best vaping regulations, which ones had the worst, and to figure out why that was and perhaps potential reforms to improve that across the entire country. We've done some of these rankings a bit at the Consumer Choice Center internationally, so if some of you might be based across the world, we do have that available. You can go to consumerchoicecenter.org. We got plenty of that stuff there. But now we're going to look at the vape index. I think there's going to be some good numbers. Depending on what state you're in, depending on what city you're in, this stuff is going to vary. I'll kind of break down the rubric and why we went into each one. So let's hop on in. All right, so we're just popping on over. You can see here, United States Vaping Index. A couple interesting points with this, guys. Obviously, those of you who might be more familiar with vaping technology, might be more familiar with everything related to regulation when it comes to this. Since 2009, as you know, the FDA has had some kind of regulatory authority over all tobacco products. Fortunately or unfortunately, many e-cigarettes and vaping devices have been put into that category. We think it's actually pretty unfair. That's another point that we can get to in a little bit. But there were these applications that were due back in September. It's called the Pre-Market Tobacco Product Application Process, in which every single manufacturer of vape products, juice, devices had to prove scientifically that their products were beneficial to public health. We know everything about the studies about vaping. We know everything about it being 95% less harmful than traditional cigarettes and tobacco. You all know that. We all know that. It's something that still needs to work its way into the bureaucracy. So a little bit of work needs to be done there. And that's really what we're trying to look at here is how is that evidence being used in the various states. So we want to look at this and say, okay, let's break it down. Let's have a couple of rubrics. So what we wanted to look at is how do they do flavor restrictions, how do they do taxes, and how do they do selling products online, vaping products online. These are kind of the three categories that were really important for us. We know we're already dealing with federal restrictions, specifically on pods. As many of you know, you can't have the fruitiest of the fruity pods available now. That's actually a Trump executive order. And a lot of the FDA has really been working behind the scenes to make it more difficult for people to access pod vaping products. But for our index, for the purpose of our index, we wanted to go with flavor restrictions, taxes, the ability to sell the products online. And the grades that we kind of gave everybody a certain amount of points, depending upon how much you were allowed to do these sort of things or whether the regulations were very cumbersome or restrictive. So the states that got between 0 and 10, got a big fat F, no surprise. Between 11 and 20, a C. And then we're looking at our golden states here, between 21 and 30, they got an A grade. So let's pop on over here and look at our vaping index. Look at that. Beautiful. Looking good. Now let's look at our green states. Who do we have here? We've got South Carolina, Georgia. We've got Iowa, Virginia, Florida, Texas, Oregon. You'll notice, obviously, the red states, the places where we're dealing with partial flavor bans, high taxes, shipping restrictions. There's 6 of them. Mostly, probably you would not be surprised to know that these are heavily Democratic states with Democratic legislatures, places like California, New York, you have New Jersey, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Illinois. Illinois was actually, we did not have it on the list at first as a F state, but they actually did just have some new restrictions that did put it into the F category. Now we have like our states in yellow. These are places that had a flavor ban in the past, and perhaps they've gotten rid of it, or it has not yet come into force. You have some taxation. It's probably a bit more moderate than definitely those red states, and it has fewer shipping restrictions. People are able to order their vaping products online. So in a place like New York, I believe, New York was actually one of the worst. We're going to pull up our entire list of restrictions here. And we're going to go to New York, and if we look at New York here, we can obviously see taxes very high, 20% of the retail price. There's actually no ability to be able to purchase online because all flavored vaping products have now been deemed illegal in the state of New York. There's a lot of work that has been done by some very enterprising young journalists that kind of detail everything with the black market when it comes to flavored vaping products. And that's only just now burgeoning up in New York. There could be a lot more on this. We're going to see. There's not, the biggest of mainstream coverage on this right now. There's a lot of stuff happening in the U.S., as you guys may have heard. But really for now, that's what we're trying to do is bring attention to that. We're trying to put together these kinds of indices so that people understand the differences between states and which states are doing good policy and which are doing bad policy. So let's head back over. One thing I wanted to point out is for a state like California, obviously it does have a brand new tobacco and vapor flavored ban that actually will be coming into force in January. That was signed by the governor, Gavin Newsom, and there's a lot of momentum actually to try to reverse that. It's likely not going to happen in the legislature, but there are people who are working on trying to get a ballot initiative together to overturn that law. That's SB 793. So that's something that we do support at Consumer Choice Center and something that we're going to try to bring attention to. I believe they're able to sign, people are able to sign up until mid-December or so. So maybe do some Googling, and maybe we can add the links later so you can see that as well. If they're able to gather 600,000 signatures, then it'll officially be on the ballot, likely by the 2022 election, to totally reverse that. So that's just recent. That's just in the news. That just happened. But the other thing for California, and this might be something that we see more in other states, particularly in areas that are, let's say, blue cities that might be in red states, is we're having a lot of local bans and a lot of local regulations. If you were to ask any constitutional scholar, they'd probably tell you it's unconstitutional, but that doesn't really matter. But in California, that was certainly the example. San Francisco, which we don as Ban Francisco here at the Consumer Choice Center, this is a place that already banned flavored vaping products. And basically after that, you had multiple other localities that joined in with their own various bans and regulations and restrictions. And it's made it very difficult for the vape community to be able to go and buy their products, to know where they can buy pods, to know where they can buy the juice for their open systems. This has really been harmful for particularly people in California, for people in New York and New Jersey, Rhode Island, Illinois. This is the kind of stuff that people have to deal with. And there's a lot of unintended consequences of this. That's why we'll head back over to the Vaping Index. This is kind of the report that we had put together looking at the various issues. And for us, it was really the kind of problems that would arise from having these restrictions, because it would cost people to go to the black market to secure their products. I'm already hearing, and I've read stories about trucks that are all across the state of New York where people are able to buy pods or people are able to buy their juice because it's illegal. You can't buy that in the store anymore. So people are having to resort to unregulated vans with blacked out windows. I have seen a little bit on the dark net. People are now buying and selling vape products there. I mean, this is insane. This is a product that was legal and is legal in most of the country. It's just these particular bad areas, these red states, if we can look, not that type of red state, but a red meaning they have an F grade on the Consumer Choice Center vaping index map here. Definitely not a good situation for many vapors, many people who have transitioned away from using traditional cigarettes and tobacco products and are now using vaping. I think that's something that for us has been a big motivator to know that there are a lot of people out there who care about this message and who also are impacted by it. And more often than not, people who vape are not seen as the most important constituency when it comes to election time, and unfortunately mostly seen as a cash cow. We see that in a couple of states where taxes have been risen so high that sometimes they're actually higher than taxes on tobacco products, cigarettes, cigars, you name it. The fact that we would have higher taxes on innovative vaping products, which do not cause the same type of harm as tobacco products, to us is actually insanity. There are many circumstances where we're trying to fight against this. I know in Georgia, they had put together a bill to try to raise it up to 7%. Thankfully, none of that passed. We were very vociferous in trying to counter that message, and there's a lot of great partners that we've been working with and many people around the country to stop these kind of bans from happening. I guess one of the main reasons that we try to focus on this is because we don't want bad ideas to spread. And we do see that with the larger states like California, New York, and Illinois, and New Jersey, is that the ideas on banning or restricting any kind of flavored vaping products is actually very detrimental. It's very dangerous. And in a way, by making it more expensive and to pushing people off into the illegal market, not only are you seeing your price go higher, but you're also making it more difficult for people to acquire the products that they have transitioned away from tobacco to use, and we thought would actually be saving their lives and improving their lives. But what we see more often than not is that legislators make it harder, they make it more difficult, and they actually put way more cumbersome barriers in the way so that you and I cannot access those products. And I know it's something that you guys are passionate about. I know it's something that many of you, if you're here, you might be interested in that business, or maybe you're providing these products. Just know that there are people who care on the other side. Not just those who are looking to make money in the industry, but there are people who care about those who can access these products and those who have made their lives better because of it. And just because you're out there making money, that's not it. This is obviously a field of risky products. This is not an industry that you are going into without any kind of regulatory or legislative threats. This is a very highly watched industry, and for that reason, we really do need to concentrate on laws, on policies, on studies, on figuring out who are the legislative champions that we can turn to in state legislatures or in the federal bureaucracy to be able to ensure that we have better laws that will enable harm reduction, that will enable us to continue to have vaping products for sale. What we really want is a robust marketplace where we can actually have these products and where consumers are free to choose them because it is improving their lives. We're trying to give agency back to consumers who've actually been able to change their lives and been made better. And now they can live longer. They're able to go out with friends without smelling like smoke. They're able to use their product indoors discreetly. I mean, there's all kinds of advantages of this that you guys are very cognizant of. But our main point is that we do need to have legislative pressure as much as an entrepreneurial focus. We can make money all day in the vaping industry, and that's fine. But if there's some state legislature, if there are a couple of zealous bureaucrats somewhere that want to crack down, it's going to make it that much harder for your customers to get that product, or for you as a consumer or a user of vape product to be able to access it. So looking back over the index, I hope you guys that provides some kind of value. I hope we'll be able to share that link with you guys a bit later on. But you can just kind of hover over your state, see what this is. If you go down of our website here, we have the full report, so you can have the Excel document, which does give all the different types of, let's say, percentages, or it gives all the rankings and the scores, and you can kind of see exactly why that is. If you're in a place like Florida, for instance, you can see that, okay, flavor ban has been vetoed. That doesn't exist anymore. The tax, okay, it's equal to the tax on cigarettes, not ideal, but still, some other places it's much higher. So didn't get a good tax score, but online sales they do allow. So this is the kind of stuff that we're ranking. We're going to be doing a lot more of this research. ConsumerChoiceCenter.org. If you head on over to our website, there's a lot more that we're doing in the field of harm reduction and vaping. This is the field of innovation. This is the kind of stuff that we're trying to promote. This is the kind of stuff that I know many of you are interested in, and hopefully we can provide a little bit of good academic and ideological rigor so that all of you are armed with better information to get out there. So I think for me that about does it on the vape index. I mentioned some of the other research. There's a great one that was done by World Vapors Alliance and some of our other colleagues about vaping as a gateway away from smoking. I think that's a really interesting thing, and one on why flavors matter. This one is probably one of the more important pieces to articulate because the flavor bans seem to really be the célèbre cause du jour. These seem to be the things that are pushed in many of these state legislators, and people just assume it's fine. Even President Trump, when he was discussing the vaping stuff in the very beginning, did not understand why people needed to have various flavors. And I think we really needed to articulate that because many people don't understand. Most people have not done the research. And if you were to ask vapors, usually the numbers show about 70%, they say that they quit because of the flavors that they were able to use in vaping. So these flavors do matter. They do draw people to these new innovative products that are less harmful, and it draws them away from traditional tobacco products. And some of my colleagues actually put together an awesome map that you'll see here that shows you the number of new smokers that would basically pop up if there were flavor bans that were enabled everywhere. So you can see numbers in the US and Canada, Spain, France, Germany, Poland, Italy. There's a lot of great information there, and they were even able to calculate out if there were a full flavor ban, how many vapors would be driven back to smoking. So in a place like the United States, it's 7.7 million vapors would be driven back to smoking if there was some kind of flavor ban, which is practically the population of New York. In the Netherlands, you have about half the population of Amsterdam. In Canada, you have roughly the population of the capital, Ottawa. I mean, there's a lot to be done here in terms of trying to educate people on these issues and why flavors matter, and trying to get away from the blanket bans, trying to get away from the terrible policies. That's something that we're very passionate about. I hope that's something that you're interested in. If you want to learn more, check out ConsumerChoiceCenter.org. We're kind of all over the world, so I'm focused more on our US, Canadian stuff. We have colleagues who are based in Brussels and do most of our European work. We have people who are in Latin America and Brazil. We have some of our fellows on the African continent. So the kind of work that we do, Consumer Choice never sleeps, and we're trying to stay active for you. And it's not just harm reduction, as I mentioned. It's science, it's innovation, it's health and wellness. It's all these areas where you're impacted, whether it's sharing economy, whether it's trying to rent out your home, whether it's trying to avoid digital taxes in the future or trying to avoid terrible regulation of the internet. That's really why we're here. So I want to thank you guys for listening to my presentation. Hope everyone is doing well. It's a great time. Hope everyone's staying at home and doing these presentations. Obviously, I wish we could all be out there and meeting somewhere, but we do the best we can. So signing off from the rest of you, I'm Yael Ossowski, Deputy Director at the Consumer Choice Center. You can always follow me on Twitter at Yael, Yaeloss. I'm always there. Probably going to have some running commentary of the day, and hopefully can add a little bit of perspective. So thank you guys so much.